It started with hushed whispers, comments that slithered through the air like poison. "Bet she's hiding a whole bakery back there," one of the soldiers muttered, loud enough for her to hear. Chloe Martinez, working quietly under the blazing sun at a military base, felt the sting of their words, but she said nothing. She simply went back to her task, hands steady as she adjusted the machinery. But they weren't finished. They circled her, laughing, their voices growing louder, bolder, more malicious. She told them to stop. "No," she said firmly, her voice calm but edged with a quiet warning. They didn't care. Instead, they pressed closer, taunting her until she took a step back, trying to escape. They grabbed her, then, their hands pulling at the waistband of her cargo pants, attempting to humiliate her in front of everyone. The fabric tore, the sound sharp in the still air, and her lower back was exposed to the blistering sun. That's when everything changed. Want to know what made 4 grown soldiers freeze in pure terror, and why those men were on their knees begging for mercy just minutes later? Then drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. And hit subscribe to keep following the story, because abuse doesn't end when it's exposed. It ends when it's punished. The moment the soldiers saw what was etched into her skin, their laughter died in their throats. The marks weren't just tattoos. They were mission tallies from operations so secretive they hadn't even existed on official records. Chemical weapons disposal, drone warfare, covert eliminations. Each symbol a grim reminder of a life lived in the shadows. Sergeant Major Daniels appeared then, his presence cutting through the tension like a blade. He scanned Chloe, his eyes hardening as he recognized the symbols on her back. "Stand down," he barked, his voice carrying the weight of authority. The soldiers, now pale, immediately froze, the horror of their mistake sinking in. They weren't dealing with just any contractor. Chloe wasn't someone to mock or dismiss. She was a ghost, a living legend in the world of classified operations, and their foolishness had just crossed a line they couldn't undo. Chloe Martinez wasn't the type to attract attention. She worked quietly, diligently, with a professionalism that needed no flaunting. In the scorching heat of the afternoon at Alpha Range, a harsh military base, Chloe didn't need to utter a word to show her competence. She wore a faded gray t-shirt, worn brown cargo pants, and knee braces that were functional but sturdy. Her job was to inspect and repair broken equipment in an environment that was anything but forgiving. Yet, even without drawing attention, Chloe did everything with absolute precision. Each movement had purpose, wasting no time or effort. But for some soldiers, she became the target of mockery. As they watched her crouch down to fix the equipment, they started making crude comments about her figure. One of them began gossiping about her body, assuming she was just some woman, maybe a fitness instructor or someone lost in the wrong place. But Chloe didn't care. She kept on working, seemingly unfazed by their words. She'd grown accustomed to the sneers throughout her career, but it never slowed her down. She knew that what she was doing mattered far more than anything they could say. And when they tried to push her into a bad situation, Chloe was about to show them they had made a grave mistake. Chloe Martinez sensed the shift in the air as the 4 soldiers approached. There was no sound, but she could feel the tension in the space around her. Their heavy footsteps, the laughter, and the taunting comments had now turned into a clear threat. Without needing to turn around, Chloe knew they were coming for her with a specific purpose. They wanted to test her. And while she could guess their intentions, she refused to let anxiety or fear take control. She continued working as if nothing had changed. When Corporal Owen Locke got close and began demanding to see her paperwork, Chloe didn't panic. She was prepared for situations like this. She handed over the necessary documents, showing no hesitation. But Locke didn't stop there. He made up reasons to press further, questioning her equipment, and even trying to humiliate her in front of his peers. Chloe knew he was trying to intimidate her, but she never flinched. For her, completing the job was always the top priority, and she wasn't going to let malicious words interfere with her work. As the soldiers stood by, hesitating and curious, Chloe did something they hadn't expected. She didn't fight back or shout, she simply carried on with her task. And soon, everything would return to where it belonged. Chloe didn't react when Corporal Locke's demand for a check grew increasingly unreasonable. But when he ordered a body inspection, the atmosphere around her shifted abruptly. She could feel the curious stares of the soldiers nearby, but she didn't flinch. As she began to lower her cargo pants, there was complete silence. Just curious eyes and even a hint of disdain from the younger soldiers. But when Chloe pulled her pants down, her back was exposed, and the strange marks on her skin were revealed in the blinding sunlight. Everything changed in an instant. The scars on her back weren't just ordinary tattoos. Each mark was a symbol, each symbol telling a story of a mission Chloe had undertaken in classified operations. Missions so secret that even those with the highest security clearance didn't know about them. The soldiers exchanged looks, shock and fear creeping into their expressions, as they realized Chloe wasn't just a regular civilian worker. She wasn't just a contractor repairing military equipment. She was a part of covert operations, part of a world they didn't even know existed. The sight of those marks froze them in place, and they couldn't help but feel a deep, sudden dread. At that moment, Chloe didn't need to say anything. She simply turned, adjusted her clothes, and returned to her task with complete calm. Everything they had just seen was enough to change the way they viewed her, and it left them with a heavy sense of regret. As Chloe stood there, fully aware of the soldiers' growing unease, the sound of heavy footsteps drew closer. Sergeant Major Daniels, flanked by 2 officers, appeared at the scene. His presence alone shifted the mood instantly. His eyes locked onto Chloe, and without saying a word, he recognized what the others had failed to see. The symbols on her back weren't just tattoos. They were mission tallies, reminders of covert operations so secret they were buried deep in the shadows. Operations like chemical weapons disposal, satellite intelligence, biological threat neutralization, and drone warfare development missions that only a select few knew about. The soldiers, still processing the weight of what they had just witnessed, were stunned into silence. Sergeant Major Daniels' voice cut through the tension like a sharp blade. "Stand down," he ordered, his tone commanding and full of authority. The soldiers froze, realizing too late that they had crossed a line they shouldn't have. They had disrespected someone far beyond their understanding, someone whose skills, experience, and past missions were classified and far more dangerous than they could ever comprehend. The realization hit them hard. They weren't dealing with a simple contractor or repair technician. Chloe wasn't someone to be mocked. She was a ghost, a former special operator whose cover had been carefully maintained for years. As the soldiers stood there, shamed and terrified, Chloe remained calm, her posture unyielding. She had seen far worse, and in this moment, her silence spoke volumes. As the realization set in, the soldiers stood frozen, their earlier bravado crumbling into nothing. Chloe wasn't just a contractor. She was a ghost, a living legend from a world they couldn't even imagine. Sergeant Major Daniels' eyes, full of understanding, met hers. Chloe wasn't just another civilian worker fixing equipment. She had been a part of top-secret operations, missions so covert that even the most senior officials weren't cleared to know about them. The symbols on her back were not random tattoos, but rather mission tallies, each one representing a different kind of operation. Each mark told the story of a different mission. She had survived missions that no one, including the soldiers now standing before her, were supposed to know about. Sergeant Major Daniels' voice broke the heavy silence. She's not just a contractor. Chloe Torres was part of Ghost Vector, a Black Ops unit so secretive, even those with clearance aren't allowed to acknowledge it. The markings on her back, they represent operations you'll never hear about. You just humiliated someone who saved countless lives. The air felt thick with tension, the realization of their mistake settling heavily on them. They had mocked someone who had operated in the most dangerous conditions, in the shadows where failure meant death. They had underestimated her, and now they were facing the consequences. Chloe, though, showed no sign of anger. Instead, she calmly adjusted her clothes, returning to her work with the quiet dignity of someone who had long since learned that her true power didn't lie in loud confrontations, but in her calm ability to get the job done no matter the cost. As Chloe resumed her work, the soldiers stood there, stunned, their earlier mockery now replaced by a deep sense of regret. They had just disrespected someone who wasn't just a contractor, She was an elite operative, a part of covert operations they could only imagine. Sergeant Major Daniels's authoritative presence hung in the air, a reminder of the world Chloe had come from, a world where silent strength and unspoken skills were more powerful than any outward display of force. He knew exactly what Chloe had endured, and now, with just a few words, he had shown the soldiers the gravity of their mistake. But Chloe didn't seek retribution. She didn't need to. Her silence spoke louder than any words ever could. The soldiers' awareness of what they had just witnessed hung heavy in the air. But Chloe continued working, her movements precise and purposeful. She didn't ask for apologies, didn't demand recognition. For her, the mission came first, and she knew that any confrontation wouldn't change what had already transpired. As she finished her task, logging each detail with military precision, it became clear that this moment wasn't about revenge. It was about the quiet competence she exuded, a competence that made her stand far above the petty mockery she had faced moments earlier. The soldiers, now fully aware of the gravity of their actions, understood that some people couldn't be easily categorized or dismissed. Chloe was a reminder that true power often lies not in what you say or how loud you are, but in your ability to stay composed and do what's needed, even when others underestimate you. As word of the incident spread, Chloe's quiet resolve became the topic of whispers across the base. The soldiers who had once mocked her now walked with their heads down, the weight of their mistake heavy on their shoulders. The rumors and stories began circulating, each retelling adding more depth to the truth they had just uncovered. Chloe wasn't just a contractor. She was an unsung hero, someone whose past was so classified, so secret, that even the highest levels of command couldn't speak of it. Yet the way she carried herself, without drama or fanfare, left a mark on everyone who witnessed her actions. Chloe's calm professionalism and expertise in her field stood in stark contrast to the immature, reckless behavior she had encountered earlier. The soldiers who had once believed they could belittle her now found themselves in awe of her competence. She wasn't just a repair technician. She was someone who had worked in the most dangerous and high-stakes environments, where failure meant lives lost. Each tool she used, each repair she made, reflected the quiet excellence of someone who had performed under pressure in ways they could never fathom. By the end of the day, Chloe's reputation had shifted. No longer was she just a background figure, a civilian worker in the shadows. She had become a symbol of strength, resilience, and quiet authority. The soldiers, now reflecting on their actions, had learned a lesson they would never forget: that respect is earned through character and capability, not outward displays or assumptions. By the time Chloe left the base, the atmosphere had shifted completely. The soldiers who once thought they could mock her were now humbled. Their attitudes fundamentally changed. Word of the incident had spread quickly, and what started as a moment of humiliation for Chloe had become a turning point for the entire base. Senior NCOs, including Master Sergeant Williams, who had years of experience maintaining military equipment, began seeking her out. Eager to observe her work, they saw the way she moved with purpose and precision, diagnosing issues with equipment in ways no one had ever taught them. Her expertise went beyond technical knowledge. It was field experience, earned in environments where the cost of failure was life itself. Chloe didn't need to boast or explain herself. She simply did her job, identifying flaws others had overlooked, making repairs others wouldn't have known to make. She spotted metal fatigue in equipment that hadn't yet been flagged for replacement, and found wiring issues that could have led to catastrophic failures in high-tempo exercises. Her thoroughness and insight left even the most seasoned engineers in awe. By the time she finished her work, her report was full of recommendations that would prevent issues no one else had thought to address. Chloe's reputation was no longer just that of a contractor. It was that of a true expert. Her quiet professionalism had earned her the respect of everyone at the base. In the end, it wasn't the loudest or most forceful that made an impact, but the ones who did their work with integrity, skill, and humility. Chloe had left her mark, not just with her repairs, but with the lesson she had taught them all. True excellence doesn't need recognition. It speaks for itself. As the days passed, The impact of Chloe's presence on the base continued to resonate. Sergeant Major Daniels, deeply impressed by her ability to stay composed under pressure, made sure that her work was recognized in ways the soldiers could no longer ignore. He personally ensured that Chloe had all the support she needed, not just in terms of resources, but in the respect she deserved. Her quiet authority and unshakable professionalism had left an indelible mark on everyone who had witnessed the events unfold. Chloe, however, never sought that recognition. She didn't need the accolades or the praise. For her, the mission came first. When Sergeant Major Daniels asked her if she wanted to avoid dealing with the soldiers who had disrespected her, Chloe simply shrugged, unbothered. "I'll be back next week for the follow-up inspection," she said with a calm certainty. "Why?" Daniels asked. "Because those kids need to understand that the quiet ones have stories." "Too," Chloe replied. Her words echoed throughout the base, a reminder that not everyone who worked in silence was weak or overlooked. It wasn't about revenge or retribution. It was about the respect that comes from doing one's job with dedication and skill, even when others don't recognize it. And when Chloe left the base, she didn't leave behind a trail of bitterness. Instead, she left behind a lesson that would be passed on for months to come. Never underestimate the quiet ones, because their strength lies in the work they do and the respect they command, not in the noise they make. Have you ever seen someone completely underestimated just because they chose to stay silent instead of making a scene? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one and respond to as many as we can. If this story reminds you of someone who never got the recognition they deserved, hit like and subscribe to receive daily stories about hidden heroes. And if you know someone who has ever been mocked, dismissed, or ignored just because they didn't meet others' expectations, send them this video. What happened at Alpha Range didn't go viral. It didn't cause a stir, and it wasn't a social media sensation, but it changed everything for those who witnessed it. Your next story is waiting for you. Just click on the screen. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, with another story about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And thank you for